will call this meeting to order. The chair notes that there's a quorum present, and we'll do flag salute. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with 2.0, additions or revisions to the agenda. Under unfinished business, I want to go ahead and add an amendment to the Lone Rock Bridge replacement. So we'll put that under 5.7. Any other additions or corrections? Okay. And, all right, 3.0, correspondence, public comment. We'll start with public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give your name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. Any public comments? I do not see any. Correspondence, I don't have anything there either, and so we'll go right into consent agenda. On the consent agenda, I just wanted to note that some of the contracts in the bottom are still pending council review. Jeremy's a little backed up, and so the motion, if we choose to approve them, would be basically an approval pending his review and sign off on those contracts. They're all, for the most part, intergovernmental contracts for services that we do for the state, so they shouldn't hopefully have too many changes to them.
I move we accept the consent agenda, approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which includes consider approval of May and June bills pending review, consider approval of June 19th regular meeting minutes, consider approval of Gilliam County Weed Control Assessment for 2019-2020, consider approval of Avangrid Renewables Montague Wind Power Facility application for activity in the county right-of-way, consider approval of CenturyLink application for activity in the county right-of-way, consider approval of contract with Fire Systems West for fire systems inspection pending council review, consider approval of Amendment 2 to Special Transportation ODOT Agreement Number 32393. Consider approval of CAPCO Services Agreement for Senior Meal Sites pending council review. Consider approval of Special Transportation ODOT Agreement Number 33485 pending council review. Consider approval of Special Transportation ODOT Agreement Number 33574 pending council review. Consider approval of Amendment 1 to Oregon Department of Education Youth Development Division Intergovernmental Agreement pending council review. So further discussion? It's a mouthful. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to unfinished business, 5.1 Frontier Telenet update. Not a lot to report on this front. We passed the budget during our last regular meeting. We are still discussing the possibility of putting out an RFP for management services. Both me and I think Sherman County have been pushing for that to be a firm as opposed to an individual. Let me think of what else. Still, we have not made progress yet on finding new telecom counsel. I'm hoping Judge Hull, who's our general counsel, was supposed to be working on that, and he was on vacation in June, so hoping he'll have something more for us when the board meets next week. We saw the first of Jim Deason's invoices, which was interesting. They came in from the beginning of 2018, so way before Joe or I were even on board. He did tell us that he would write off anything that wasn't in by the 30th of June. My understanding is those did not come in, so there'll be a question for the board on whether we're going to pay the rest of 2018 and all of 2019 so far. So that was my read, was that we shouldn't pay those. So we'll see what happens if he submits them or not for the next board meeting.
Volunteer that, he said.
Yeah,
He said that.
He said that.
Yeah, he had given us 3 dates in June where he was going to give us a third, a third, and a third, with all of the last ones to be caught up by June 30th. And as of our last meeting, he submitted them through, I think, April of 2018. So there's still a year and a quarter almost of invoices that have not come in. So that'll be up to the board to decide whether we want to pay it. My personal opinion is he told us he was going to write it off, and
He said it.
I kind of feel like that was an agreement. So anyway, we'll see how that goes next week. Let's go to 5.2, award bid for courthouse roof repairs. Jeff.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I don't know what's in the packet. We have,
I gave him
okay,
your project memorandum that you sent last night, and then the bid.
okay. So briefly, we put the thing on formal bid, it was out in the paper. We had 4 people show up for the bid walkthrough, meaning that there was, actually only 3 of those were going to be able to bid, it was just mandatory pre-bid. 2 of them submitted bids. WeatherGuard was low bid at $155,660, I think, which is consistent with what I anticipated. The other one was Brown Roofing, which I actually had anticipated to be the low bidder, but they were at $234,000. I talked to them yesterday because I'm like, what happened? And I think the bottom line is they got this.
Hey Jeff, it says 155,660 on this one, and then this one says 150,660.
I think it's 155,660.
This one.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
right one.
the
I
actual-
must have typoed that one.
Okay. Okay.
Which one's the actual?
I believe it's 155.
The 155.
Not the memorandum, but the actual bid opening summary.
Anyway, so my recommendation, I did some of the due diligence that we're supposed to do after the bid to qualify them as the lowest responsible bidder, okay? And so my recommendation is to award to WeatherGuard Roofing, or it's actually WeatherGuard Corporation. There's a couple of different things there. And the way the process works is the court's supposed to issue a notice of intent to award, and there's 7 days under which that can be challenged. And then what I like to see is, because you only meet once every 2 or 3 weeks, is that if there's no challenges or anything, then it becomes an award that's something. So I submitted some language for a motion on that.
Mhm.
So that's my recommendation.
Any questions for Jeff?
I don't think so.
I don't have any, that's a big difference.
It is. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I move to issue the notice of intent to award the contract for the replacement of the courthouse roof to WeatherGuard, Inc. per their bid dated July 16th, 2019, in the amount of $155,660. The intent to award will become an award of the contract on July 25th, 2019, contingent on no challenges to the intent to award being received by the county prior to July 25th, 2019.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we issue a notice of intent to award the contract for the replacement of the courthouse roof to WeatherGuard, Inc. per their bid dated July 16th, 2019, in the amount of $155,660. The intent to award will become an award of the contract on July 25th, 2019, contingent on no challenges to the intent to award being received by the county prior to July 25th, 2019. Is there a further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anything else?
I think that's all we have from you today.
You have a nice day.
You too. Okay, 5.3, consider approval of special transportation dispatcher job description. So this is the the position that we approved previously. And this is just asking the court to approve the job description and authorize Marla to move forward with advertising the position. The position description itself was more or less approved by the previous court. Marla added a few details on the data entry piece of it, and also added, under the special requirements and licenses, added the CPR certification and the driving certification requirements. But other than that, this is pretty much standard, and of course it's a full-time job, where the previous one I think was the part-time that the previous court approved. But other than that, it's pretty standard. So Marla reviewed it and would ask the court to approve it.
I move to create the position of full-time special transportation dispatcher and to approve the job description for the position as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we create the position of full-time special transportation dispatcher and to approve the job description for the position as presented.
And I guess, can I add that I would just authorize the transportation coordinator and the judge to coordinate the recruitment process.
You second
I
that?
would second that.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you get that, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, we are on to 5.4, review and award 2019-2020 special projects grants. So, when last we met, the last time we discussed this, we've gone over the south end, and then we've got the north end as well. And I don't know if we want to actually go through them or we just want to discuss them. I'm assuming we've read.
Yeah,
The
I have one thing, I mean, I think we were kind of okay on the south, but I wanted to bring up one other thing on the south end,
Okay?
if I could. The
Yeah.
portable stage discussion.
Uh-huh.
I just, after thinking about it a little bit more, after the meeting, I thought that since we hadn't actually met the, amount of funds that were available, I just wanted to know what you guys thought about maybe fully funding that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so we would amend that and make that a $5,000 award for City of Condon. On the public library, Cindy Osterlin reached out to me about the funding for that. So the Condon Education Foundation is willing to put their name on it instead.
Oh.
And I don't know if we would allow that, if maybe we should have kicked that out in the beginning when it came in as a Gilliam County request and asked them to go find a qualifying sponsor for it. So I don't know if, we could go one of two directions. If we want to fund it, we can either just find it in the budget someplace, or if we're willing to accept an amendment to their request and have the Condon Education Foundation sponsor it instead. They would be a sponsoring entity.
So the only real amendment is just the name of the applicant?
Yeah.
Everything else would stay the same.
So we could do either way. It's just what's the comfort level. And then I think, and then maybe one of the things to note when we go next year, when we sort of refine our grants, is just to make very clear that the county entities are not eligible to apply for grants.
So it'd be the Condon Education Association.
Condon Education Foundation.
Yeah, I think if they are willing to support it and take it on, then we should just award that request for $1425
Okay.
to them.
Is that good with you, Leslie? Okay. And then we'll just clarify for next year's in the grant documents so that they know. I don't think it'll happen again with them, but. Okay, so any other changes to the south end
I don't even know, I don't.
projects? Do we want to, should we do a motion on those and
Sure.
then take up the north? And we've already, by the way, approved the Gilliam SWCD for $20,000. Leslie and I
Right,
took care of that
right.
during the last.
I move we accept the South Gilliam County Special Projects grants as presented with the change of the City of Condon portable stage increasing to the full request of $5,000 and changing the applicant for the Missoula Children's Theater to Condon Education Foundation and award them their request of $1,425.
I'll second. So it's been moved and seconded that we accept the South Gilliam County Special Projects Grant recommendations with the amendments of fully funding the City of Condon's request for a portable stage at $5,000 and changing the applicant for the Missoula Children's Theater request to the Condon Education Foundation and fully funding them at $1,425. Is there further discussion?
And do we just want to, by consensus, authorize you to finalize and sign the grant agreements?
Sure, that would be.
Outlining those conditions?
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion beyond that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Let's dig into the north end.
Okay, my one exception was the request from the Arlington Lions Club and their New Year's Eve ball. I know that what they've presented is basically a social event, but I also think if we're gonna split up the north and the south end of the county, which I don't like, as everyone knows, that this north end of the county could use some support and some additional, even if they are social events, to bring our community together.
I agree. I mean, I think it's a livability thing, right? So having events and things for people to go out and socialize, I think is part of that fabric of the community.
Right.
So, and there's certainly the funds to support it. So
I agree, I do too. In the past, we've given a lot to the, the chambers and stuff to do events, and they haven't all been fundraisers. A lot of them have just been events, so I'm all for that too.
okay, so we'd like to amend that and fully fund it. Is that the suggestion?
Yes.
So at 4,400? Okay. Any thoughts on the Education Foundation?
How clear was it in the application that we didn't wish to fund like building of reserves anymore? Was that fairly
Was that in the
apparent?
actual application?
I believe it was in the notes that kind of discuss the process, but I don't think it's actually in the application itself. But the notes are posted on the website with the rest of the application packet.
I mean, I'll throw out my thought
Okay.
about this, which I feel like we're still transitioning people into these new guidelines a little bit. And so my suggestion would be that we consider funding the request this year, but letting them know that that's the next, basically the next time they come in, it needs to be for an event. Because I think that we're still kind of getting folks used to, and if they asked for it last year, they probably assumed that it was okay and may have not read the guidelines on it. So I kind of want to help transition people and not just say, particularly since we're funding the Scholarship Foundation out of Condon.
Yeah, I really didn't see too much difference in that, just because we're paying for the dinner is not that much different than helping them keep their reserves up.
So I
both
would,
ways.
yeah, I mean, I would just suggest that we fully fund it, but then convey to them next year that we would the kinds of applications we're looking for are more of, like if they want to do a fundraising event and we're helping to support that, or helping to support their other fundraising activities, so that they're using that money to actually leverage additional money. Because I would like to see them use our money to help bring in even more money than what we're giving them.
So would that be something that would take place in your, like right now? I mean, they would be aware when they're awarded this money that, okay, this is what we're doing, but next year. I mean, that would, you would take care of that when you finalize.
Yeah, I would communicate that with them when we send, so we'll send a letter out to all of them, letting them know the court's decision, and so I would anticipate for their letter that I would specifically call that out.
Okay. I would be okay with that.
Thoughts on that? Okay. And then anything on the Lurie's request? Feedback on that?
I did have a question. Where's my paper? Here we go. So, last year, one of the things that the money that they asked for, I believe was $10,000 for the tent rental, and then they didn't need a tent. So I was just wondering if that was available this year to use for the tent.
Then I don't know. You're out in there. Go ahead, Rod.
Well, last year, what we showed in our budget that it takes a lot of money to put on the Oktoberfest, and that we use that $10,000 to help fund our Oktoberfest, even though it was just a big savings to us because we did use the flex building. But this year, we had a meeting last night and we were trying to get our tent secured, but that's, we're needing funds for the tent. And so that's where we are. I believe we have about $18,000 on our account right now, but we paid a lot of bills last night. So that's going to bring us down to about 15. But it takes about 30,000 to put on the Oktoberfest, and we started that process last night.
I'm just concerned about the cost and the money you're actually raising with your event. It doesn't seem to be, if you only have $18,000 left, do you see any changes in that?
Well, we're going to do better at sponsorships this year, but we've been lost with location, and we still are this year. We hope to have, which will be a big thing for us, to have the actual tent on the actual property this year. So the tent would be a big showcase to give a feel for where the barn is going to go. So that's our plan. The planning commission, all this has turned into the planning commission. So we don't know if we can get that change in time, but it sounded favorable because we're not asking for a zone change. We're asking to be commercial on industrial property. So it looks favorable that we'll be up there, but we just haven't got the final okays yet. But the tent will go, it'll be a neat thing for us to do, to put the tent where the property is, where the barn is. And then we can see if we like it or tweak it or turn it or, that's the plan.
Okay.
But we in the past, we have raised good funds. The first year, we actually raised $18,000, I think, I believe, wasn't it, Julius?
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, we don't have the time to go out and get the sponsors that we'd like to get, but we're all busy people, and we're trying the best we can with sponsorship, and we're trying to hire a sponsorship person to go out and help do that. But we found out we did that in the past, and it has to be somebody that knows the project and knows the region and the area. So we've dealt with some people before. They couldn't get any funds at all because nobody knew them. They were strangers to that when they asked for sponsorship. So I had to go do as much as I could by myself, and we hired April Marcus to do quite a bit of it. So and we're working on that right now. But
it's hard to get the sponsorships when we have to be part of that, you know, and we know that. The time is a factor in people.
How many people?
Rod? Oh, I'm sorry.
I
The 18,000, was that net or was that gross?
That was gross, or net. That was net, 18,000.
So above
first
your
year.
expenses, you brought in 18,000?
Yes, that was the very first year when we were at the fire hall. But I did a lot of work that year, going out myself and getting sponsorships. But with my job, I don't have that kind of time anymore. I do 3 events a week right now.
And about how many people are going to Oktoberfest?
We had about 300 last year. The building was full. I got pictures with me if anybody wants to see them. But the Flex building was full to capacity. And we expect it to be bigger this year if we get on that property on top where we want to be. I think we could raise that number to closer to 400.
Well, I think I would like to propose that we give them $10,000 again to help with the tent.
Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think setting aside, if you look at just the event itself as a standalone and not necessarily are looking to it as a fundraiser, I mean, I think it's
another one of
becoming
those
part of the
social
community
things.
fabric and something that I think is worthwhile to support. So I would be okay with that too. Leslie, what do you think?
What are your thoughts?
Yes.
Okay.
So then you want to go on to the second part?
Yeah,
Okay,
let's talk about the second part.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Start it.
Nope, you go. I'm making notes.
Okay, so just by reading the, I can't find it either, the recommendation of the review committee on the second, where is it? Oh, there we go. The second half of the request, it looked like the review committee's findings were that that those were operational, that was more of an operational request, and that should maybe go during the other grant cycle, is the way I read it.
Well, paying for the consultant and the engineering team,
Yes.
operational requirements.
But that would have been, that either should have been during the budget time or or the one that's coming up in the fall. Is that the one we do again in the fall, or was that capital
We do capital
projects that come up again?
in the fall.
Could I speak again on that?
Sure.
What we're asking for there is we've hired Anderson and Perry, and we've been paying them little bits at a time to get it started. But Brad's been doing a lot of work for us on helping us with this zone part of it. And then he kind of did an estimated bid of $20-some thousand to help us get to a certain point. And that's why we have those numbers there. But we've been paying Brad just, the other day we paid him $300. We told him we're poor, so we're just trying to, get by. And that's why we had a lady write that grant for us. But we're trying to get able to start prepping the land and just, and get easement and get all those things we need to do, which is a lot of work. But that's what we're working on. Is the engineering phase.
On that. I mean, I see what the grant committee is saying. I think you could look at engineering either way, right? So it's definitely a capital construction cost, because if you don't really need an engineer unless you're building something. So it's part of the project cost.
So is that something that could be requested then in the next fall capital projects?
It could be there. I mean, our special projects allows for some construction as well, up to 20,000. So it could go there. It could also come in during the fall timeframe.
Okay. So is that what you would recommend, Leslie, for them to come back and follow the process? And
Well, that's what I think that's what the review
what
team was
the
trying
team were
to,
trying to say?
we're trying to get at.
You want to add that to their letter so that they're aware of what our thinking is that
Okay, we can do that. So you
that
thinking,
portion of it was,
you thinking we'll fund the tents request for
Right.
10,000 and then ask them to come back under the operational grant silo?
yeah.
Or not the operational, the
capital.
The capital.
I thought that the review team's idea was, it seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so is there a motion then with those adjustments that we've made? Did somebody write them all down? Do you want
I
me to do
did,
it?
I got it, I think. I move to approve the North Gilliam Special Projects grants to the organizations as recommended by the review team, with the addition of the Arlington Education Foundation, 20,000, the Arlington Lions Club, 4,400, and the Woolery Project, 10,000, and to authorize the county judge to finalize and sign the grant agreements containing the conditions discussed.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the North Gilliam Special Projects grants to the applicants as recommended by the review team, with the amendments of providing $20,000 to the Arlington Education Foundation, providing $4,400 to the Arlington Lions Club, and $10,000 to the Woolery Project for the Oktoberfest tent, and authorizing the county judge to finalize and sign grant agreements containing the conditions discussed. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So I keep checking my phone because Sherman County is talking about the building codes over there, and Joan was going to text me when they make a decision on their distribution. So I'm going to recommend that for now we skip 5.5 and kind of see if Sherman County can come to a resolution so we know what they decided over there before we take it up here. The appointment of the administrative assistant is mostly just an FYI. I wanted to let you guys know that the interview committee had 5 applications for the position. The interview committee was me, Chet, and Rachel Weinstein. We interviewed and assessed all 5 candidates, and the interview committee selected their preferred finalist, and I made an offer to that candidate. She has accepted, but has not told her employer yet, which is why I'm not saying it in a public meeting yet, so that she can, so we have the courtesy of her telling. But as soon as she gives me the go-ahead, then I will share that name with the 2 of you. She came back and had asked, and we'll talk about this when we do the salary schedule, but she'd asked to come in at a step C, which is she actually asked for $41,300, and which is a step C in the schedule for that. And so I went ahead and made that adjustment as the administrator, but we can take up that specific piece when we do the salary schedule. So this is mostly just an FYI that we've got somebody on board, and we'll be figuring out a transition plan probably in early August, depending on what her current employer needs her to finish up before she can come aboard. So.
Great.
It's just an FYI. Let's see, 5.7, consider amendment to the Lone Rock Bridge replacement contract with Anderson Perry. Dewey, you want to come up and talk to us about it? Set the stage.
Good morning.
Good morning.
They went out and they did their preliminary look at the project. They did some core samples, and at that time, the staff archaeologists went around and looked at everything, and they found a substantial site within the footprint of the new bridge, which by doing that, they actually had to stop what they were doing and then get, now it's the Corps of Engineers and senior archaeological people to come in to do the assessment, see if there's ways to design around where the site is, or mitigate the site one way or another with that. But they wouldn't tell me, is it a tribes deal, is it antiques, is it a fire pit, whatever it is, that's all secret stuff, so.
Got it.
So that's where we sit with that.
And so they have a plan, though, to address it?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
But there's a cost involved with that, which they talked about at, when they met with us at the original contract, with contract documents. It stated that they would phase down their stuff, but if something like this arose, there would have to be an added cost to it.
And so I ran this by the attorneys because the additional charge will put us over the 250,000 kind of threshold. And so they walked me through a series of questions, and I think we're able to do this because the original scope included this or anticipated this kind of service already. So we advertised it as part of the RFP that archaeological or cultural assessment was going to have to take place as part of it. And that they also, from talking to them, I don't think that it would have really impacted the bids that came in and the amount that they came in for, who would have bid on their project. So based on that, our attorneys are telling us that it's acceptable for us to move forward with authorizing Anderson and Perry to do the additional work that's over and above the contracted amount. So in order to do that, though, we have to have some findings within the court, which I will make. And that is that the county has determined that the amendment to the contract with Anderson Perry for additional engineering and archaeological services is within the scope of the initial solicitation document, our request for proposals for design engineering services for the Lone Rock Bridge replacement project. The county further determines that the amendment would not materially impact the field of competition for the engineering services described in the initial solicitation document, which is the request for proposals, the design engineering services for the Lone Rock Bridge replacement project. And based on these determinations, I would move to approve the proposed amendment to the contract with Anderson Perry for certain archaeological services described in the amendment.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the proposed amendment to the contract with Anderson Perry for certain archaeological services described in the amendment. Is there further
Do we
discussion?
need to say the amount? If we don't need, that's fine.
We
but
can. I'll just amend it to say in the amount of $18,700. Will that cover it, Dewey?
It all
It's an
depends.
estimate.
Okay.
It all depends on, you know, if they
Right,
have to
do not
go
say. Yeah, maybe we
outside,
shouldn't
you know,
say.
over and above that in order to
Whatever.
get around it. It might be a little more engineering involved and stuff.
So why don't we leave that open-ended? And if it goes over, Dewey, why don't you just keep the court
I will,
up to
yeah, I
speed?
will, as I get the information, I will pass it on.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thanks, Dewey.
Let me know if you need me to sign anything on it.
Don't believe so.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll catch up with you.
Okay, all right.
All right. Let's go into, let me see if Joan's texted me yet. Nope, not yet. Okay, discuss personal services, new business, discuss personal services contract with High Desert Writing Services. So, with our new administrative assistant coming on board in early August, I am recommending that the court, and the expectation is that she will be taking the minutes for the court. unless we decide to do something different, but that's part of her job description. And so I'm recommending that the court terminate our contract with High Desert Writing Services. The contract has a 30-day termination clause, and so I'm recommending that we do it effective September 1st. I've already talked to Mary about kind of that deadline to see if that will work with her. I think that will work, and that will allow Mary then to do the minutes, should have enough time to do the minutes, I think, for our August 21st meeting, so that those would be prepared. And then that would give our new person a little bit of time to transition into the role too, and come up to speed. So that is my recommendation, that we formally take care of that notice, so that Mary knows what to expect and we can move forward.
I should also mention I've been doing planning commission, and I'll let you guys sort out. I'm willing to do that, or
Okay.
whatever, just let me know.
So we just need to amend the contract to just cover some of those
Is there
others, because it
planning-
wasn't just planning commission, but it was other things as well. Wasn't there?
Mainly just planning commission.
Just planning commission?
Yeah.
So could we then, rather than terminate, just amend Exhibit A to remove the county court references? Would that be acceptable, Mary, you think?
Yeah, but
Because that would
also,
keep your planning commission.
I'd like to remove the part about liability insurance, because that probably cost me almost as much as I would make taking it.
Okay.
Really.
So why don't we, since we're not actually looking necessarily to terminate, which would have the 30-day clause, could we take
rewrite
this
our
back,
contract.
and Mary, you and I can work
Sure.
on revising it, and we'll take out the references to the county court, but leave the planning commission.
That-
Okay, so we will do that, and I will bring it back on the August 7th agenda.
Okay.
When you come back. Okay, 6.2, consider approval of bid for ambulance services portable radios. Chris?
I figured you'd just read it and know what it's all about.
We like, you're here, you can just come talk to us.
I like when you're in here, then I don't have to try to interpret.
I've got this table up here close enough, you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Push it close.
So, again, we're back to the law enforcement and economic enhanced fund of the $300,000 that the wording was changed last fall to include 911 communication equipment as needed. So, we had our 911 board meeting the end of May. I cannot remember, it's been a while. And it was brought to our attention that we need, the north end ambulance would like to have 3 more portables, and the south end ambulance would like to have 7 for the 700 radio system, the new radio system that we went into a couple years ago. So I've got a bid, and it comes up with the $29,413.30. I will tell you that Motorola has a sale going on right now. That these radios are usually $3,200 to $3,300 a piece, and we're able to get them for $2,900. So that's where we're at right now with that. So that's where we're at. And just a little for future, at that 911 board meeting, it also was discussed of what could potentially, how many more radios we need to totally outfit the county so that all of our services are covered with the 700 radio system. And right now, I think I have 10 more portables that need to be purchased for the north and south end fire departments. But right now, at this time, we want to just go with these 10, and then we'll look at it again for next budget process, and also figuring out a way to potentially get a 911 equipment replacement fund set aside during the budget process in spring of next year. So I don't have to do this all the time. Yeah.
And on the procurement side, we treat this as sole source because
Yeah,
it's
it's-
Motorola.
it's the
We
NASCO.
can't really go outside of Motorola, or they're not interoperable.
Right, it's
They
the
can't
NASCO
talk to
value
each
point,
other.
which Motorola, and it's that same thing last fall that I got Ruben came down and checked it out, but yeah, Motorola goes ahead and they contract. There's like 20 different states that they go in and get their contracts already set aside with agreements through the NASPO Value Point Destination place or whatever it's called. So, and Oregon is a participating state for that. So.
Any questions for Chris?
This probably is off subject, but have all the radios that have been placed in equipment been programmed and are functional? Road department?
Yes, those got done. We got them purchased in the fall, when I came in the fall. And then we had to kind of wait for all of the equipment to be in one spot. So I think it was in May, middle of May, Dave Wireless got up here and then did all the installs of the 7 renewables for 4 graders, water truck.
They've all been tested?
Yep. And also the other thing that Dewey had was he had them go through and re-examine, I guess, all of his VHF radios too that he was having issues with. So I think the road department's pretty outfitted now.
We're pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'm
They've
trying
all
to
been
work
trained
on
how to
a,
work.
what's that?
They've all been trained on how to operate?
Not quite yet. No, not on the new radios yet. But I'm working on a maintenance agreement with them to annually look at every radio. Because there's times when they just quit. It's either an antenna, bad cable, power source, whatever. So I'll be bringing that to the court here in the future. But they did a very good job of the installs. It's been busy. We haven't had time to actually do the training on the radios. There was actually with the fire this weekend, there was an issue where the operator and the grader couldn't seem to communicate. But it actually took a member of the fire department a little bit to actually find it on the radio also to get it done.
Is there a motion to approve the bid?
I move to accept the July 1st, 2019 bid from Motorola for 10 Apex 4000 portable radios in the amount of $29,413.30 for North Gilliam Medic and South Gilliam County Ambulance.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the July 1st, 2019 bid from Motorola for 10 Apex 4000 portable radios in the amount of $29,413.30 for North Gilliam Medic and South Gilliam County Ambulance. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, consider 6.3, consider surplus of 1999 Ford Taurus resolution number 2019-06. So this is the vehicle that the DA's office, April, was using for victims assistance. And with our new Equinox that came in, we're doing a shuffle of the motor pool. So the idea would be that the oldest in the county motor pool would then go and be utilized by the DA's office. It will still be the county's vehicle, but we're just shuffling through. And then April's or the DA's vehicle then would be surplus.
Sounds like a good plan.
And we set sort of a minimum bid at 500. We'll see what comes in. I think that's reasonable for what we're dealing with here, so.
For what it's worth.
Exactly.
Okay, I move to adopt resolution 2019-06, declaring the 1999 Ford Taurus as surplus equipment and redirecting that the vehicle be disposed of via sale by sealed bids or public auction with a minimum bid set at $500.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2019-06, declaring the 1999 Ford Taurus as surplus equipment and directing that the vehicle be disposed of via sale by sealed bids or public auction with a minimum bid set at $500. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, 6.4, consider approval of salary schedules for fiscal year 2019-2020. So I'm just going to walk through these. thinking we might want to just take them one at a time to make it a little cleaner. So let's just start. The easy one is the sheriff's office schedule. This is just standard. Chris maintains it, so it's just the standard, the 3% COLA. The 3% comes from the CBA. So Nathan and I did the calculation on that, and we just extended that to everybody, union and non-union. So that is the only thing in the sheriff's salary schedule is the 3% plus any step increases that are due to longevity. Questions about it?
I had any questions on that one? Did you left on that one?
I did not.
Then I would move to approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 salary schedule for the sheriff's office as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 salary schedule for the sheriff's office as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry.
I did. Okay, sure you did. Okay, let's do the next sort of one is the non-represented employee schedule. Changes to this. The chief of staff, the administrative assistant positions have both been added. I went ahead and adjusted so that all full-time and part-time employees on this particular schedule are based off a 40-hour work week. So it's really just, nothing really changes for any of our folks. It's just Ellen's calculation is based off of 40 hours. So the FTEs and
Doesn't have
everything.
any impact?
Nope. Same amount
Just
as,
makes it simpler?
it just makes it simpler. Yeah. So I just, in order to do that, I just had to adjust the base a little bit. But the actual dollar amounts that are being paid out are the exact same. So it's just the way Ellen's calculating it. And the only other thing of note is that the administrative assistant candidate or now person that we've hired is coming in at a step C, so would be credited. And I went ahead and did 2.08 so that technically on July 1st, she'd roll over into the next step and not have to wait years. If that makes sense. Any questions about that one? Other than that, it's just the standard 3% and step increases as appropriate based on tenure. Oh, and one more thing, actually. The other question is our part-time help rate is set at $12.50. And so I just wanted to flag that and see if there's interest in raising that. As minimum wage goes up, we probably want to keep moving it up slightly so that our fill-in people, we can recruit and have folks available to help. So I'm not necessarily making a recommendation on that. I left it at $12.50, but I wanted to flag it.
When we hire part-time help, what typically are they doing?
So it's often, like, I think Ellen will sometimes have, people like Reen Durfee come in and she and Dawn have to go to a conference. So it's somebody that typically, and I think Chet occasionally will do that too. It's mostly, I think most of the electeds use it when there's somebody that, like they both have to be out for a conference and they need somebody to cover the phones and kind of do basic stuff. So occasionally there may be a fill-in. I mean, I could foresee if somebody has a specific project and needs some help that's a very short-term thing, then sometimes they'll come and ask me if they can do that. So it's just kind of to fill in gaps and holes, and if there's a project that really needs more manpower, but it's a short-term thing, then they may.
We kind of have a pool of people
There's several, and
that are
folks
signed up to do that?
Yeah, folks typically will reach out. I mean, I think for a lot of them, you know, I would say probably a lot of the departments have one or two people that they've worked with consistently over time and that kind of know the drill, and so they probably go back to those people. But there's been others that have reached out even recently to Ellen and said, you know, I'm interested. So we just kind of keep a list of folks that are available, and, you know, if there's a need, then those folks are contacted. So we'll put that out there into the universe, that if there's folks in the community that want to fill in, that they should reach out to us. Any questions about the non-represented?
I had any on this one.
Okay.
I'll move we approve the fiscal year 2019-20 salary schedule for non-represented employees as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 salary schedule for non-represented employees as presented. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to our union folks. There's really not too many changes in here. Again, it's the standard 3% COLA, which is in the CBA. We've added the transportation dispatcher in at $16 an hour, which was Marla's request. I sent this to the union, and they have not raised any objections with us about that pay rate. So at this point, I'm not anticipating they will. I've shared it a couple of times now, so I think we're okay on that. The administrative assistant for the Justice Court, Judge Patnode had requested during budget time that we move her up to 0.6, and that is so because Chris really needs somebody to cover the front of the office and the phones because of ex parte contact. And so in order to be able to have full-time coverage with Leona having more seniority and more vacation time to take, we need to sort of bump Kayla up so that there's enough hours to cover that office. And we did budget for that. That was requested during the budget time, so that is budgeted. And then the last request comes from our deputy treasurer and treasurer, asking if we would consider moving Kelly, basically crediting her 2.2 years, which would move her up to, let me see where we're actually moving her to. Moving her up to step D, is that correct? Yeah. And that was also originally requested during the budget committee. We did provide enough budget room to do that if the court decided to move forward with that. So the budget committee allocated that amount for interested. Thoughts?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
Okay, if that were to take place, does that, when you do move someone up a step or two, are they held there for the next 5 years until they get
No.
caught up?
No, the union contract now has a clarification on how that's handled. So basically, they're credited that time, and it's as if they worked that amount of time. So you'll see on the, I added a new column that says the years credited at hire. That's the new column so that we can see when somebody's been hired or given a raise sort of outside of the normal steps. And so anyway, yeah, it's treated as if, and that was negotiated in the last CBA. So
Okay.
that's our, we have to,
Okay.
that's not a policy we can tinker with.
Okay, the other, I mean, I have several questions, but another thing too, before I can start thinking about this one thing, is where are we at with the 40-hour week? Because I noticed that was part of the request in the letter as well.
Yeah, so the 40-hour week, to update you, there are, so the legislature passed PERS legislation that you're probably aware of that will impact some of our potentially some of our employees that would like to retire and come back. It impacts some of the contributions and where they go. And so the union has formally sent us a letter requesting that parts of the contract be reopened to address those issues. One of the things that they specifically requested was compensation. And so I am anticipating, if we would like to pursue that the 40-hour week, that we may ask that be part of the negotiation when it is reopened to address the PERS side. So the short answer is we can't unilaterally do that. The union would have to agree to it because the work weeks are stipulated within the current contract. However, it looks like we are going to be reopening portions of the contract anyway. And so if the union is in agreement, we may address the 40-hour work week as well.
And kind of open it up
to allow people who are interested in working 40 hours a pathway to doing so.
Okay.
Which sort of raises the issue, in addition, that would be a negotiation that I cannot be part of because my dad might be one of those potential retirees that would come back and be impacted. So I've talked to Nathan about the possibility of him doing that negotiation again since he sat on the last one, and possibly bringing in Pierre again to handle on the legal side. Our counsel is suggesting that they think Pierre's expertise would be beneficial to us. So that's the very long answer on the 40-hour week, is that it's still up in the air until we reopen.
That's kind of on hold right now. Okay, so I have a few questions, but this has come up in the past before, and I believe that some of the electeds are under the impression from Pierre, and the last issue we had with this, when we had a courthouse employee that had been moved up, and then maybe they were supposed to go back, but it didn't happen, and it caused some angst with other employees. That increases should be done through the bargaining process, and that. So I hear from some of the elected officials, and they're like, "Well, I hear that we're not supposed to ask for increases for our people. That it's supposed to be done during the bargaining process," and then others do.
I need some
Go ahead, Nathan.
salary, steps, or FTE. What's an increase in your mind? I mean, but
Yeah.
because steps are still within the agreed upon salary schedule. So from what I understand, it's actually the salary itself. It's not so you can move them up in steps, but you can't change the base salary without going back to renegotiate.
Okay, thank you for that distinction.
Yeah. And FTE's actually court's decisions, my understanding. It's outside the collective bargaining.
So what happens to people because part of the people that I hear from are people that are tapped at, that are maxed out.
Right.
So are they just stuck with COLA for?
Either that or they need to take on more responsibilities so they can get reclassified. If they can get reclassified as some other type of employee.
How has the job description changed since the hire? Oh, do we want to talk about that a little bit more?
Crap up.
What?
That other responsibilities. I've got several members of the road department that are maxed out. That's it.
That is, unless they
But
change jobs. They have to change jobs in order to get their
They
salary.
change jobs every day. They do something
Well,
different
it's when I
every
say
day.
change jobs, I mean a job description needs to be materially changed.
So with 20 years, we did get a $2,500 bonus
Correct.
for those people that hit the 20-year mark, because that salary schedule does only go out to 20, or actually only 15, I think, isn't it?
It's 10.
10 to 15.
It was,
So, and I'm one of those, I mean, I'm maxed out, I'm at 26, and so we look at, but that's what I always said, that it seemed to me like maybe that salary schedule needs to go out a little bit further. You know, when you got people that are getting up there a little bit farther, you go out a little bit further with the years. I don't know.
Personally, I think our salary schedule needs an entirely
Oh,
overhaul.
There's-
yeah.
Complete overhaul.
There's no incentive for the people that are maxed out to do any better, but they still do.
Yeah.
And they're punished when the others
Right,
walk up.
yeah.
So I'm thinking on the steps themselves, that is something that has to be taken up during the negotiations period. I don't think we can, because the salary schedule is attached to, so we agree on, I think what Nathan's point was, we agreed with the union on the range of salaries that are available for each of those positions.
What we did was we agreed upon the job descriptions, and that those job descriptions matched the pay, and then we agreed that the steps were what they are.
Yeah, but that does
That's all
not
within the
preclude, again, I just
contract.
mentioned that they just asked us to open up compensation. So before we get ahead of ourselves on steps, let's take a step back. Because I know that is an issue that lots of folks have raised, but it's not something that we can unilaterally do today. Because that has to be part of the negotiation with the union if we're tinkering with their steps. But the question is how we handle the specific request. And I don't think that, my read is that I don't think that if we want to move people up or hire people into additional, a higher step, I don't think we have to run that by the union, is what I'm saying. So that is, I think, our discretion to decide if Kelly has been given additional work that would warrant that, or if her performance in the job warrants a higher classification or a credit, then that is within, we do that when we hire people, we have that latitude to say this person has enough experience or has performed in a level that allows them to come in at a higher step. So it's really just our call on whether that has been warranted and whether what we're asking of Kelly warrants additional compensation.
So are there additional duties that have been added to the job description? Because the IT was part of it right from the beginning, wasn't it?
Yes.
There were no additional, there weren't really additional duties added, but it's just really her experience and her level of performance has demonstrated that she's in the incorrect step. So her base salary would be unchanged. True request is just saying, hey, look, she had over 10 years of accounting experience. And we didn't compensate her for that time hire. I mean, good for us for trying to save money, but at the same time, I mean, it's not a motivating factor.
And I don't want to infer that I don't think your performance is excellent, because I do. I just want to make sure that we're fair and that we're handling these requests all in the same way. Because sometimes I look at the road department and I just think that they are undercompensated. And if we and I'm sure there's several of them that their performance is
Exceptional.
yeah. So I'm just waiting to hear back from everybody.
I think part of it too, and maybe this is something I think internally we need to do a better job of, is performance reviews that are regularly happening so that there is sufficient documentation when somebody asks for that request, that there is a paper trail basically saying that this person is going over and above the expectation of the job. And that's on us, because we just have not done that internally to the level that I think we need to.
And consistently through departments.
Yes,
So
that
that
every-
one elected isn't doing it one way and the other
But
elected.
the problem with that is with the salary schedule, you have people that are maxed out, that performance review is a waste of time and effort. It's a complete waste. And the way the union's set up, you can't help one without helping everybody.
Yeah. But again, I think on the steps, I just want to flag, I understand it's an issue. I've definitely heard from staff about it. is not something we can take up today, though.
We need to move on.
So the question is just, how do we treat this specific request? Do we feel that it's warranted? Or not even really, is it appropriate for us to make this outside of the bargaining agreement is the first, I guess, question, what your comfort level is on that. And then two, if you want to grant the request, if you think it's appropriate.
Well, having never worked with a union before, this is all very new to me.
Yes.
I'm used to being able to make those decisions on my, based on what I can recommend to my supervisor and an HR person, so. I don't know if it's appropriate.
I'm hoping that, I know this is a bigger picture topic, but I'm hoping that our new chief of staff that this will be something that they are tasked with, trying to hopefully make some improvements to our salary schedule and our process, and
Totally needs reworked.
Amen. Amen.
Okay. Well,
what are your thoughts?
I mean, I guess I take it from, I feel that perhaps when Kelly was hired in, that she wasn't appropriately credited with the experience that she was going to bring, is sort of how I would view it. And so I think that personally, I think her work is exemplary. I think that she consistently goes over and above what we ask of her to do. I will say that we've added the grant program.
What about
to
tax
her.
collection?
It's in the
And
job description.
That's in there already?
so
The grant stuff is.
we did add the grant stuff, which is pretty significant to manage that. And so, I mean, we have done that. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I feel like they probably, when they brought her in at a step that was too low for what she was bringing to the table.
Well, and I keep bringing up too, and I know this is like I'm a broken record, but you know, there's been, at some point in times, when some people have been hired, the thought process was everybody has to start at step one. You know, we have this salary schedule, that's how it works. You know, it works if people start at step one. But I mean, I totally understand the flip side of that.
And we need to fix that.
Yeah,
Because if we don't reward the people for their experience, then we aren't going to get experienced candidates to
Right.
apply for our job.
I think the idea with the salary, the steps, is that you're looking at a range of potential candidates, right? And so if you have somebody coming in that's going to require a lot of supervision and training and just doesn't have a lot of relevant experience, then that's actually a cost to the county to get them up and running. And so presumably you'd be you're compensating them less because than you would somebody who's going to step right into the job and be able to do it from their very first day. So having that flexibility for recruitment, I think, is important to be able to offer a range depending on the applicant pool.
So we need to move forward.
Are you ready?
The decision maker is moving us forward.
Okay, what is your thought, Sherry?
Well,
I've shared mine. I'm
My
okay with
question
moving her.
is, if we do agree to move her to step D, does our motion to accept this salary schedule just get that added with the change? Okay, so.
Yeah, so the
So it would
motion.
be,
would-
I move that benefits for the fiscal year 2019-2020 salary schedule for union employees be accepted with the change of the deputy treasurer and IT coordinator being changed to a step D.
Yeah, so credited 2.2 hours, or
Yeah.
2.2 years, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 salary schedule for our represented employees with the amendment that the deputy treasurer be moved to step D, which is a credit of 2.2 years. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay. Final one, this is housekeeping really, because the elected officials are salaried, but I am wondering,
I have some questions.
okay. I am wondering if you guys are interested in moving the calculation that Ellen uses to a 40-hour work week instead of 37 and a half
For electeds?
for electeds.
Yeah. Personally, I have never understood a 37 and a half hour work week.
You said there's really no,
The only impact is the accrual of sick leave. But given that electeds don't have vacation restrictions,
Don't have to use it, basically.
they don't have to use sick leave. So it's mostly just a housekeeping so that Ellen is calculating everybody off at
The same.
2080 per year,
Yeah.
2080 hours to clarify. And it obviously doesn't adjust compensation, none of that, that's set by the compensation, or recommended by the compensation committee. So it's mostly just a housekeeping on the paperwork side for Ellen.
okay, then I would move that the benefits for elected officials be calculated based on the 40-hour work week.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the benefits for elected officials be calculated based on a 40-hour work week. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
As of July 1st. I guess can I add that, as of July 1st?
Sure. You're still okay with that, Sharon?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, yes.
I'm
Do we
okay
have
with
to
that, too.
approve this schedule too?
We already approved it.
Okay.
So we accepted the compensation committee's recommendations, I don't know, back in.
Can I ask this question?
Sure.
I'm confused about the treasurer's compensation. It says his original hire date was October 1st of 2008. Oh, that's because he was at the grain lab.
He's at the grain lab, yeah.
Okay,
So it keeps track for the
Okay, all right.
sort of longevity pay when you hit the 20
PERS.
and PERS. So it keeps track of both. So there's one at
Okay,
the original
okay,
hire
okay.
and one for the, if you've been a previous county employee and become a.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that?
That answers your questions on those.
No.
Okay, we've got salary schedules done. Let's discuss the purchase of the 2015 Cat wheel loader for the road department. You want to come on up, Dewey?
All right, with the completion of the Lone Rock Grade project, paving of that, one of the concessions we made at that time was that we would pile sand at Lone Rock, and that way there would be a loader placed there. We didn't have a loader. We used a backhoe, which didn't work. I couldn't get a full load of sand. And so I've been looking for a loader since, well, it's been over a year and a half now. This loader, actually I went down in December and looked at a similar loader to this. These are, they're state of Idaho returns. It's a 1,000-hour machine, a little over 1,000-hour machine. It's priced very well to considerable machines. There's been machines over 200,000 with actually more hours on them. I negotiated an extra $10,000 trade-in on the backhoe. They offered 24. I squeezed them a little bit, plus they threw in a set of bucket forks. It was just one of these things where I've been shopping for quite some time on this machine. This thing, the right one turned up. We need to jump if we can.
So I talked to council about it this morning. So here's what he told me, that there is an exemption in our procurement that is based on this being already used, so used personal property, which means it's difficult to find a comparable. So we're not required to do a formal procurement process. However, he did say we do at least need to call 3 potential sellers.
Which
So,
I've done multiple times,
okay,
and investigating machines and gone and looked at other machines.
okay. So as long as we have that documented, we can move forward with a purchase of it. So we also, just for the record, noted that a trade-in doesn't technically reduce the purchase price when we're looking
Right.
at those
No, it
things.
doesn't.
So,
Yeah.
because I was curious about whether it does or not, and he said no, it's treated as part of the purchase price. So that was his recommendation. So as long as we have some documentation that there's been contact with at least 3 potential
correct.
sellers, and this is the best option for the county, then we're free to accept the bid and make the purchase.
Okay.
Okay, I move to approve the bid from Western States for the purchase of a 2015 Caterpillar 938M wheel loader in the amount of $170,250, and to trade in the 2004 Caterpillar 430D for $35,000. Funds to come from the Road Equipment Replacement Fund 223-1.
Is that right?
Yes.
Right fund? Okay.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the bid from Western States for the purchase of the 2015 Caterpillar 938M wheel loader in the amount of $170,250.
Yeah, for that amount of money.
$170,250. And to trade in the 2004, good Lord, Caterpillar 430D for $35,000. Funds to come from the Road Equipment Replacement Fund 223-100. Is there further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank goodness. Okay, stay up and talk to us about maintenance of the courthouse, the Shuttler and the Shuttler Station parking lots. The bid that you gave us from SSF.
I keep tabs on all the asphalt throughout the county as the years go by. We haven't done anything to the industrial park since it was paved. It is starting to show some distress. Shopping around, the best option for that is it's a seal coat process where they can actually come in and will seal it. It will go down into the asphalt and take care of that. The other thing we have is this courthouse parking lot. We've chip sealed it twice. There's huge cracks in it. We've crack sealed it multiple times. It also needs the same thing. It needs to have that micro coat go over it. There's enough product that will actually go in, fill all the voids, and make a solid seal on it, which it needs. We dug this lot up. I was trying to go back to my records and find out that Laura was the judge at the time. So the county has a pretty good investment in that. If we don't, it's going to have to be dug up again and repaid for a lot of money.
And this is another one that would come under an intermediate procurement. So, but my understanding is, do we talk to people, and these are the only guys that'll come out?
These are the only guys that will come out. Yeah.
So as long as we have the documentation, if we can make sure that we have documentation on who you called, then I think we'd be able to move forward.
I did have one small guy come out and look at it, but it was too much work for him.
Couldn't do it.
He didn't even want to do this. This lot was too big for what he normally does. Homeowner
like personal driveways.
and stuff like that. He doesn't do big projects.
What budget line does this come out of?
It's a good question.
Not mine.
No.
Yours?
Not mine.
We have a facilities fund that we could, that's like the roof project's gonna come out of it. So potentially we could take, I out of there. I think we want to consider, there's a pretty good, isn't there a pretty good?
Industrial park maintenance.
Yeah, the industrial park has that.
So I'm thinking.
So it would cover its own.
On the courthouse one, I might
Theoretically.
need to check with Daryl and see if there's enough leeway in his just regular maintenance budget. If not, it would probably need to come out of the larger facilities budget. But the Scheller Station one we would come out of. And if you guys just authorize me to figure out where that needs to come out of, I'm happy to do that too. So we don't
And
overrun.
we're getting fairly late in the season, so I really need to let them know as soon as possible so we can schedule it in. Because it also involves the road department. We have to go down and do all the sweeping.
Get it cleaned off and.
That was part of the deal. We do a lot of the prep work, come in and pull the traffic bumpers up in here, stuff like that prior to them coming in to do their seal coat.
Okay, I move to approve the bid from Sierra Santa Fe to apply microcoat to the parking lot of the courthouse in the amount of $9,422 and to the parking lot and roadways of Scheller Station in the amount of $45,361 and authorize the judge to determine what line item those would be taken from.
The industrial park price is for every bit of the asphalt at the industrial park.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the bid from Sierra Santa Fe to apply microcoat to the parking lot of the courthouse in the amount of $9,422 and to the parking lot and roadways of Scheller Station in the amount of $45,361 and authorize the judge to determine the appropriate line items for each. Is there further discussion?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Because I've thought of this before, but where do we document this? Like at different departments, we have all these different departments that are getting 3 quotes or whatever. Does each department have their own documentation, or is there a centralized location where that documentation goes?
I don't think we have a process in place, but we need to
Yes.
create one. On the big projects, so like on the roof project, Jeff and I take care of all of those, and they all go into one big file that then gets handed over to the auditors if they have questions about it. On these smaller ones, we need to implement a process internally that tracks these a little bit better. A lot of times, if they've been received and there's actual bids, they would come in as part of the court packet, so they would be documented there. But if we don't have a response, obviously, then those need to be documented elsewhere. So that's something I'll add to my little administrative list to implement within the building.
Okay, definitely. Our records need to be better than they've been. Because I know I've tried to find stuff and nobody knows where it is.
It's a mess. Is there further discussion on the?
No.
Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I will contact them and try to get them to schedule us ASAP.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks,
How are you doing? Thanks. Okay, let me see what's happening over in Sherman County.
Nothing.
Nothing. Joan said they had like 5 appointments still that they were getting to. So let's start on McCall. So, you've got some notes.
Well, I'm just going to be one big question mark because I've been to the meetings and I'm still so confused that.
Yeah. So I'll kind of bring everybody up to speed. So the 4 counties met now a couple of weeks ago to discuss distributing the McCog Building Codes reserves. There's about $3.9 million that was transferred when McCog dissolved into an holding account that Wasco County has but cannot spend without the approval of the 4 counties as to distribution. The main sort of challenge to figuring out who is owed what is that there is a lack of records prior to 2013. So, which is also happens to be the same window of time when all of our windmills were coming online.
Isn't that?
Yes. So the state of Oregon provided a distribution based on its records. Again, that was only from 2013 to McCog's dissolution. I raised objections, Sherman County's raised objections that doesn't fully capture the contributions that our windmill projects made and that we should be credited with more contribution for that period of time. Wasco County, interestingly enough, Tyler Stone, showed up with the IGA, and the distribution he claims could be based on the final 2 years of McCog's existence. The smaller counties rejected that because, frankly, as I told him, I felt that if that was the intent of the board when they dissolved, that they would have just distributed the money then, and the fact that they didn't do that, to me, suggests that they did not think that that particular termination clause was related to the building codes portion, because they distributed all of the rest of McCog's funds through that formula, but left the building codes intact. And so I read that as them making the interpretation that that did not apply to the building codes fund. Basically, the resolution says that all 4 counties have to agree for it to be spent. Wasco County already has folks employed, and their budget basically requires them to pay their people out of that reserve fund. So they are eager for us to have a resolution prior to them needing to cut paychecks by the end of the month. So where we left it during our meeting was originally that Wasco County would take 80%, Gilliam County would take 10, Sherman County would take 10, and Wheeler County would take nothing. After we left the meeting, Judge Morley has reconsidered Wheeler County not taking. I think originally the state's calculation was that they should be entitled to about 3% of the reserves. So he asked if we would basically support them taking 3%. I said I would take it to you guys, but tentatively, I told them that was, I would try to support Wheeler County. I also talked to Joe Wolskis about where Sherman County was. It sounds like they are going to try to support Wheeler County having 3% as well. And he and I had a discussion about making sure that that does not come out of our 10%. So that's where we've left it, basically. Wasco County is asking for each of the commissions and courts to take this, decide whether their allocation is appropriate, and get back to them about that. And so that's kind of where we are.
I don't think it's appropriate.
Okay.
I mean, Wheeler County 3% is fine.
Yeah.
I don't think our percentage is enough.
Yes. I am, yeah, I think probably in agreement.
And so tell us what all you're going to
It was
say.
a
because you have done a lot
spirited
of-
discussion, I will say, with Wasco County.
Well, there's the
Lay it
email,
on us.
the email that I saw showed, when you, from Tom McCoy, showing that the calculations based on megawatts of how much money went into building codes, and it looks like Sherman County wind farms paid almost $500,000 to building codes just for the wind farms, and your calculation was, over $600,000. If we stick with the 10%, it's only, well, it's not.
390,000.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
close
But
to
we do
that.
have to consider also that that might have been the fees that were charged, but then there were also expenses that would have gone against those.
That would have been paid out.
That would have been paid out to the
Okay.
Inspectors.
to the inspectors and, whatever the administrative costs were to actually do that. So that's something we need to think about too.
There's also a couple other little things I found out is, there were other things going on other than just windmills, power lines, Shetler Station, the rail, waste management, all kinds of other little amounts that would have affected that too. And then I had a note here from a former McCog member that said, remind them they wouldn't raise the rate. We were subsidizing Wasco County until Google came along. Anyway, so a couple of thoughts I had was, maybe starting at 20%.
We started at 25.
The other
They
thing
didn't like that at all.
I did some calculations on also another thought I had was, maybe 15% for us. That comes in just a little bit under the 600,000, maybe 12% for Sherman, unless they think they need to be, that we should be equal. Maybe 70% for Wasco County and then 3% for Wheeler. But those were just some
I like
numbers I was
15%.
throwing
Because
around.
if we did 15, 15, and 3, that's a third, basically, that we're asking for the small counties.
Do you think that Sherman and Gilliam need to be the same percentage, or do you think it should be based on how much they,
I think as long as we don't have any solid records, that we should work with Sherman County to be the same.
Okay.
Just.
well, then that 3 could just come out of Wasco counties and bump them down to 67.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically,
No, we're not
we would
gonna
take a
give-
third and they would take a third.
Yeah, we're not
or
going to give
2/3.
Wheeler ours. Wasco has to give Wheeler theirs.
Okay, so,
So now we have to wait and see what Sherman County's thinking.
yeah, so is it the direction,
Maybe we should tell
Joan,
Sherman County
What we're thinking.
Joan is saying it won't be until after lunch that they take it up.
For Christ's sake.
They're not as efficient as we are, obviously.
Should we tell them what we're thinking at this point, and so they have something to go on, or?
We can. How about this as a,
You've been to the meetings though, so what do you
so,
think?
Well, don't get us started on what we really think from being at the meetings, but,
and so my own personal thing, I think Wasco County is gonna be eager to have a resolution, despite what they may say at the table. So I guess what I'm asking is, it sounds like the court's decision is an outright rejection of the 10%, an insistence that Wheeler County get at least 3, and asking for 15 for at least us.
Yes.
Sherman County can
do
negotiate.
whatever they want.
So we would support whatever Sherman County requests themselves, whether it's 10 or 15 or 12 or whatever it is.
Because they talked 12. and
We'd ask
13.
for 3% for Wheeler County. Is 15 our bottom line for Gilliam County? Understanding that if there is I just need to put on the record, a possibility that if we cannot resolve it, that attorneys may be involved to resolve it. I'm just putting it out there. Not to sway, but just to put it on the record that without litigation, that word did come up. Wasco County did use it.
Yeah, they were threatening us.
So basically what I need is some direction from you on what our bottom line is when I go back to the table.
And I am okay, this is would be my counteroffer.
Okay,
And then I don't know how Sherry feels about it, but I would be okay with giving you a little latitude on negotiating
Okay.
if you have to.
I did, one thing that maybe is the fallback position is that Sherman originally had asked for 12 to 13% and Kramer said yes before Tyler backed him off of it. So perhaps that's the fallback, is to go back. If they say absolutely no on 15 and Sherman County does not support us on 15, which the dynamics are kind of interesting at the table.
Yeah, 'cause Sherman County wants to go to use Wasco County as their, so there's that interest also, but they weren't happy with some of the conditions that Wasco County was going to be putting on them as a partner. So that kind of drew them back a little bit, because they were gonna just say, oh yeah, 12, 13%, we don't care, and then they said, well, this, and this, and then they all looked at each other and said, yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
And so maybe we want more than that.
So their decisions today are, one, whether they are happy with this distribution, and two, whether they're going to contract with Wasco County for building code services based on their.
Because it didn't sound like Wasco County was going to be any better service to them than the state is now, because they said they were so backed up that they were gonna do all their stuff first, and then when they had time, they might
Get to them,
Sherman.
Sherman get to them.
And oh, by the way, they'll charge Sherman County more.
And they're gonna charge
Because
us
we're their way out.
Yeah.
until their reserves are gone, because they're going to put, they're each gonna have their own bucket.
Okay.
So Wasco County's 67% will go into their account, and Sherman County's whatever percent will go into their account, and then when Sherman County's is all gone, then they have to start paying Wasco County whatever fees they.
Even as Wasco County is probably going to be sitting on significant reserves coming in from the city of the Dalles. they would be charging the other partners more.
Yeah.
So
So that's
Sherman
why
County
they backed up and said, wait a minute.
wasn't that excited about that deal,
We want
understandably.
more money than we thought.
But that
So
being,
I agree with Leslie on the, let's go in with 15%.
Okay.
If we have to negotiate down, or if Sherman County comes in higher and we want to go up a little bit and match them, then at your discretion, I think.
okay. So we're okay with me,
You're in charge.
and should I set the floor maybe at what Kramer agreed to originally?
At the 13%? I like that, because he did say that.
Okay.
He was agreeable to
We have him on tape.
that. Do it. She came in with 25%, and it didn't sound like she was going to budge, and they were all kind of,
Okay.
it was fun.
So that is my marching orders, it sounds like. To recap, that we are going to counteroffer with 15 with some latitude for me to adjust potentially downward, maybe down to 13. That we all support what Sherman County requests, whatever that may be, whether it's 10 or 15, whatever. The commissioners that I talked to over in Sherman County, it sounded like they may be okay with the 10. And that will ask for the 3% for Wheeler County. Okay?
Sounds good.
Are you okay with the, do you want to go 12? Do you want to go 13? You want to go 10? How low do you want to go? You guys are stuck with 13? You think that's low enough?
I mean, that's,
We need to settle it and
Yeah.
get it over with, but I hate to.
I think going back, I think it's reasonable to go
Too
back
much
and
of a
say
guy.
that Kramer agreed to an amount, and that's, we'd like him to stick with what he agreed to at the table.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna try for 15 first.
Yes. Do we want to let Sherman County know?
I will.
Soon,
Yeah,
whatever.
during lunch, I'll call Joan and let her know that that's, so that they can, that may
Okay.
impact what they do.
Okay.
Okay, I think that covers it, so let's do court member reports. We may actually
Go.
hold this to 2
Go.
hours.
She has a new
Oh, I have-
appointment, so,
I have an appointment. Okay, so I'll be fast.
and she does too. So here we go.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Went to a North Central Public Health District meeting. It was good. They had an estimate for painting of the, we've been talking about the improvements that are needed, and it was like $38,000. So I was like, wow, that's a lot to paint inside,
Okay.
but anyway, they're still getting some more estimates, I guess. They talked a little bit about Pacific Power, I guess, in Hood River County. They're now talking to them about the possibility of safety power shutoffs during fire season. And I don't think that Gilliam County is going to be affected by that. It didn't sound like, but they're very concerned about that. That they're just going to turn off the power when the conditions are right for a fire, and that's going to affect a lot of people. And that they haven't really worked with the counties over there to try to come up with solutions and how they're going to handle that. Yeah, and there was some other stuff, but that was.
Those are the highlights.
That was the big thing.
I went to a road committee meeting, and we talked about a lot of stuff. The main thing I took from the meeting is that they think that we need to increase funding for the road department, that our roads are in disrepair, and we need to start sinking in some more money. They also think that when, like, the road department goes out on fires, that needs to be, that the road department needs to be reimbursed. They shouldn't just bear that expense through the road department when they are fighting fire, which I thought was a good point.
Yeah, that is a good point.
And yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff. It was very educational. If there's another meeting that comes up that I can't make, I should let you guys know so you can attend, because it's, I learned a lot. And then we went to Metro.
Yeah, that was fun.
We went to the Metro gathering, and it was very good. And we made some connections and bonded, and
Great. The new Metro president she's a firecracker.
yeah. So it was
I
good.
liked her.
You got, I was
I
gonna
did
say,
too.
you got along with her well.
I
We're buddies
liked
now.
She saw things like I did.
And that was it.
without me saying anything, she saw the same thing I did. So
Oh.
I was, yeah, so
Great.
we bonded on that. So anyway, I did attend the McCall Building Codes meeting on the 8th of July, and so we know what happened there. And I've been working with Jeff Schott and Nanette Lawrence on the repairs that are needed at the Ardent Mills building at the industrial park. We've gotten bids for the roof repair, the exterior doors, we're working on that one, and then the cement steps that are cracking and falling apart. So we're working on getting those things done. I do have a Norcor board meeting tomorrow, and I will be attending the Tri-County Court meeting next week, and hopefully the Frontier Telnet meeting on July 4th. And I want to thank everybody for their understanding at my missing the last one.
Of course. Of course. Okay, for me, I already mentioned the PERS reform stuff, so we'll be hearing more about coming back to the table with the union, and so I'll touch base with Pierre. And then if there's no objections to having Nathan kind of be the representative on management, I will probably just fully hand that over to him and ask him to communicate directly with the two of you about any updates, since I need to step out of that discussion. Wanted to let you know that there's a group that has started meeting in Condon, and I think we're going to try to expand to Arlington as well to talk about rural revitalization. Lori Anderson was at a electric co-op, one of their big conferences, and heard a place-making consultant. They come in basically and help communities address big picture needs and kind of help them develop plans and figure out funding sources and things like that. So there's a great video if you're interested in seeing it. Talk to Lori about it because she's the only one that has access to it. But we've been meeting regularly, and I did talk to McClure, who is the actual placemaking entity, and they gave me sort of an initial proposal, which I may kind of bring before us later to just look at and maybe consider if we may want to partner with them in doing our strategic planning. And rather than have sort of the strategic plan and then the creation of the plan, see if we just wrap that into one potential project. So anyway, expect more from that later. Thompson Brothers has notified us that they want to give up the lease on the batch plant. So that'll be back on the agenda, what we want to do with it. Because they are done, I think as of July 1 is what they told us. So.
Okay.
And then the last piece is Brian Walsh with Avangrid has approached us about the creation of a red zone, which is basically like an enterprise zone, but it's specific to energy projects. And there is a 3 to 5 year exemption of taxes on those. He talked about it specifically in relationship to solar investments. But anyway, he is encouraging us to consider that, and so I wanted to put it out there. Is this a topic that we'd be interested in having more information about, not just from Avangrid, but from the assessor and other entities that may want to weigh in on whether this is an appropriate thing for us to do? And if so, would you guys like me to put together a work session where we could bring in the assessor's office, the energy companies, probably CREA?
Yeah, who would be, because I would be interested at least in hearing more about it.
Okay.
But I want to know who is going to be our advisor. I think we need someone to negotiate on our behalf that would be, so we'd be hearing all the information we need to hear, and not necessarily from someone that's, from.
Well, and the other thing we can do is Sherman County has one, so we may consider asking Sherman County's folks to come in and just talk to us about how it's gone for them, what the pros and cons that they've experienced so far are. The open question, and the one that I sort of posed to Brian, and I don't know if he didn't have an answer, didn't want to tell me the answer, is what if those impact repowering of the windmills, because obviously our taxing districts have gone a lengthy time without receiving their full amount that they, that would have been assessed but for the SIPs. So with the SIPs rolling off, I just want to make sure that we're not basically missing out on tax revenue once repowering happens in some of those projects. So, and it's not clear to me how this impacts that.
Yeah,
So.
and I talked to Chad a little bit, just really quick this morning, like for about 2 minutes right before the meeting. And one of the questions I had for him, but he didn't know at this point in time, and I don't know if anybody knows, is in 3 years, if we went with the 3-year deal versus the 5-year, how much is the value going to depreciate? And, what kind of property taxes are we looking at 3 years or 5 years? Is it going to just go?
Well, and the other issue too that we can also look at is, are there places where it's more appropriate, right? So you don't necessarily have to do a countywide red zone.
Well, yeah.
You could potentially look at areas where we're not seeing as much development and try to use that as an incentive for companies too.
I asked that question too, and he said, yeah, countywide. That's what they were going to ask, because that was actually my last question, was how big of an area? Not the urban growth boundaries of the cities, depending on the population. He said he wasn't even quite sure about if it would include the urban growth boundaries of both towns, but he was looking at the whole county.
We had 3 towns.
Thank you. Sorry. Pretty sure that population's not good.
That was Avangrid's request though, correct? Was it countywide?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of, there's counter offers available. I think that if we do consider this, there would be things that we could say, well, we'll do this, but we want this.
Mhm.
We want our, what about like free power for our residents? Or,
Now you're talking.
yeah.
Okay, so based on that, do we want to schedule December 7th? I'm thinking way far ahead. August 7th. Would you like me to schedule it? That's our next regular court meeting. Does that work? And if so, we're scheduled to meet at 10. So would you like to schedule it before or after?
You could do before.
Like an 8 a.m.? Okay.
Oh my gosh, you have to get up.
Oh, well, here's the other thing. I kind of like after though, because at least after we know that, this one we're pretty sure it would at least take an hour. I'm okay with it. I didn't want a big lull.
Okay, so we
That
will,
would only give us, it was an hour, that would give us an hour lull, which
We always wait for
pretty much
better.
filled today.
Correct.
okay, so we will schedule a work session at 8 a.m. on August 7th to discuss the red zone. And I will line up a variety of people to talk to us about it.
Okay.
Who other than, my question is a little bit is who can we get to really that would really be able to help us negotiate, that knows enough about this topic?
CREA might be a resource potentially, or if there's an attorney that specializes in it, we might look at utilizing just an attorney just to do that piece of it. An energy attorney, basically.
I would like a guy.
But for now, I think this is mostly just an information gathering, and then, because we need to decide whether we want to even move forward with something like it first, so.
Right. And I'm wondering too a little bit about what the planning commission process is on something like that and how long that would take. He kind of acted on the phone with me like it was, of course they want to hurry up.
Yeah,
Hurry up.
he's got a project I think he's trying to sell is why, but.
Okay.
Okay, I will schedule that. Other updates, our next regular court meeting will be August 7th. Frontier Telenet Board will meet next week on Wednesday here in the courtroom at 1 o'clock. Tri-County Court is at 10 in the morning, again here. Anything else? I think those are the main things.
I had written in my calendar something, I was it Rachel that was talking about some kind of tour on the 25th?
Oh, DCL, what is it?
I know they changed it.
DLCD.
Several times.
DLCD will be here in town
On the 25th.
on the 25th and 26th. So their commission will be here. I'll be doing a welcome. They'll be having dinner at Burns Park at 5:30. And I think that's it.
We're on vacation.
Yay.
Okay.
Vacation's good.
Anything else for the good of the order? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was late getting here, but I know on the June 19th, you were going to talk about the juvenile court. I couldn't find the minutes online, so I don't know if you're continuing to discuss that, if you've made a decision, where we are on that.
Good question. We ended up tabling it that day because the full court was not in session. And it was just Leslie and I. Sherry was out with her mom. And so we basically are still, it's not currently scheduled to be on the agenda. We're still just taking public comment on it. And I don't know yet when it'll come back on. So.
Okay, so it's still,
We're still listening.
It's still, yeah, we're still listening. We haven't made a decision on it. It got pulled from the last agenda because we didn't,
well, yes,
all three of us.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you didn't, because I couldn't find the minutes.
We haven't made any decisions without you.
Thank you.
Anything
It's kind of
else?
hard to come sit on these hardwood.
Yes, they're terrible. I know, I did that for a year.
That's
And
why we
they're
try to keep
terrible.
them to 2 hours or less. So anything else? All right, I'll adjourn the meeting.